Welcome to the Next Move in Conveyancing podcast. I'm your host, Kev Tunnicliffe, and we'll be discussing all things property and legal. Let's get into today's episode. Well, welcome everybody. The first of our new series of podcasts. We've entitled it The Next Move in Conveyancing. First one today is myself and MD of the group, Keith. So I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself, Keith. A little bit about yourself and where you've come from.
I can. I think most of the brokers at some point would have spoke to me on a compliance issue, so the name is most probably already out there. But for those that haven't, I'm the MD for the group. By trade, I'm an ex-accountant. Spent at least 12 years in heavy manufacturing shipbuilding on the Tyne, and then I thought I'm going to make that massive step from hard work to soft work and work service-based in conveyancing. It didn't quite go that way in the end, though. Possibly the worst choice I think I could have made at that time, but I've made a career of it anyway.
So how long have you been in the conveyancing?
About 15 years now in an accounting compliance role. So covering everything from numbers to AML to source of funds to source of wealth, all the way through to HR. So pretty full spectrum, really.
And you've been with us 7 years now?
7 years, yeah. So came to see you after that little random LinkedIn exchange. I looked you up on Facebook to say, is this guy's name actually real? Because I couldn't even pronounce it, let alone look how many T's and C's and F's were in it. And I went there and it was like, you on holiday topless? And I thought, What is this? What sort of job interview is this going to be? Went along. And then obviously, 6-week contract that I initially thought it would be turned into 7 full years. And hopefully the place where I'll actually retire.
Cool. Well, that topless photo obviously did the trick.
I don't know, but if you want to think that way, we'll go that way.
Well, for those that don't know me, I'm Kev Tunnicliffe, the man with lots of T's, N's, C's and F's in his name apparently. Wherever we go, people can't pronounce my name. Tunnicliffe is my...
Well, I thought it was Tunnicliffe. I was like, Tunnicliffe.
You're from the northeast, it's right, yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't comment either with surname of Ahmed, should I? Do you know, but...
Yeah. But my story, I joined the property sector probably in, I think, 1990. I was a mortgage broker for 25 years. For the last 6 years of those, we'd set up Sort. And the reason for the podcast is probably, I think conveyancing's at a point in time now that it's probably pivotal to where it's going to go. It's probably not changed a fat lot in the last 20 years. Certainly since I was a broker, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount different. And a lot of the frustrations that were around back then are probably there more now than ever. But at this moment in time, it just feels like the conveyancing sector's finally getting to grips with itself and starting to do something to probably help its own cause and to work much closer with the rest of the sector, whether it be agents, brokers, lenders, whatever, to start delivering a far better service for the client. So the series of podcasts will be around that subject. But I think if today we just really start and look at what do we think of the issues, what's the market shouting at us at the problems with conveyancing at the minute. I know a big part of that is, certainly within the group, falls on your shoulders with source of wealth. And the delays that can cause, because not only is it far more difficult now to prove deposit, it's where the rest of that is coming from. Gifted deposits being probably the biggest challenge. So I think if we start off, and the first question we've got, which will probably be across the series, is the $1 million question: is the home buying process fit for purpose in 2026? So if we could have a chat about that really over the next 5-10 minutes or whatever it takes.
You see, I always think it's a really weird one because everybody says our conveyances never evolved, never moved on. If I think when I very first started in 15 years ago, we had the financial crash, we had everybody leave the industry, we had all the disasters that happened from it, but literally all we were kind of doing is just paper shuffling it through. It was all done on paper, nothing was done on tech, there was no system, there was no control, there was no source of funds apart from getting a bank statement from your client. You saw your client face to face and done their ID check, it took seconds. I think when you kind of look back then to when you look back now, the process is still fit for purpose, as in the conveyancing process, but all the other little bits of crap that they've then dropped onto the conveyancer isn't. Like, we've got a team over at sort of 5 financial crime analysts. They spend every single day meticulously going through every single client's income statements, tax returns, pay slips, bank statements to prove the source of funds and source of deposit. But what's that got to do with the conveyancer? Do you know, in the conveyancing, where you've got a smaller firm where you don't have the luxury of that team, how can you expect someone that's qualified in a legal avenue to understand a financial one? Do you know? And I think when you think of all the little bits that have kind of just crept in to pass off liability, because ultimately we have the client account, we've got the legal bods, so therefore we should shoulder the risk. But when you kind of look at everything that's came in, it almost seems unfair. And I think it's that part of, let's look at, you know, even if you look at the stuff with the Enviro stuff that's coming over, even if you look when Wall had to register with the FCA to sell insurance policies but not give advice, and now all the stuff that's kind of come with registering as tax agents, it's put so much onto a profession that historically in any other law firm is never there for profit, is only there for cash. But you're squeezing constantly those margins in order to get everything in there that you need to do. So the process of, you go to an estate agent, you list or buy your house, you get a conveyance, and they do your conveyance, is fine. All the other little bits that come onto it aren't. But I think the biggest part of that boils down to fee. I still know some firms that are still charging a similar to fee to what they were 10, 15 years ago. Do you know, it just never ever evolved. And it almost became a dirty word to think in the value of conveyancing is worth more than 700 quid. You'll pay your agent 3.5 grand, but you wouldn't pay that to your conveyancer who actually transports the risk.
Yeah.
Do you know? And I think that's where it's all gone a little bit weird.
Don't get me started on we'll probably discuss the fee side of it in more detail. Certainly for the last 2 or 3 years, looking at the legal side of it, the price of conveyancing is way too cheap. So, are we, as a group, are we part of the problem? Yes, we've got Sort Legal, and we can identify all the issues that are going on with the industry right now, because we feel it day in, day out with Sort Legal. But having Sort Refer and that panel manager side of it, I've been asked that question a few times over the last few months, is, are we part of the problem? Is the panel manager the one that's squeezing that price down? And you look at all the competitors, and we do our competitor watches, and it does seem that there's still a bit of paranoia about, oh, hang on, you're doing it cheaper for them than you are for us. And for instances where firms are being added on to new platforms and being told they need to raise a profile because they won't get any work because nobody knows them. Well, that's rubbish. These firms are on every other panel. So all the introducers that are going to use them in the new platform have already used them in the old. So it's just, you give it me cheaper so I can go out and get more work. I think that's something we're obviously trying to change within Sort Refer and across the group, because we see it on both sides that cheap isn't always the best.
I think the whole referral fee, though, and blame the panel manager, is just an old argument, because in the 15 years I've done it, we've always worked in high volume referred work. Do you know, and traditionally in the smaller firms that we used to look after, they didn't have the marketing team. They didn't have the drive to go out and get work. They rely on us feeding them that work to do. So I kind of think when people say the referrers to blame, some are, but I don't think we are, because we try to go to that value added. We don't drive down price. You know, we try to improve communication. We try to improve the journey for the client between the law firm and the broker and the agent. But I think there's some out there where the cheaper you can get it, the bigger your referral fee, and that's the ones that damage the market, because that just drives everybody's price down in order to compete. You know, we then don't drop the prices and everybody will say, oh yeah, but you're not competitive now, so we're not going to use you. But actually, the person in control of it is those other ones that are squeezing it for a quick referral fee rather than trying to improve an industry. And I think when we try to do things like this, your involvement in Project 28, we're leveling up campaigns. You know, if you look at how frustrating sometimes I got when you're in a room full of conveyancers saying to them, tell me what you want, we want more money, well, this is how you do it. And then the following week, we find out from another introducer that actually they've dropped their prices with one of your competitors. And you think, but we just had in the room, we just had that conversation. I think sometimes what needs to happen is, I don't think conveyancing needs a huge change. It just needs a shake up, or needs a fucking good slap of reality. Do you know what it is? If I was selling this as a manufacturing business or model, it would never get off the ground. Conveyancing just would never even get off the ground, because there is almost zero margin in it. Most of it will have to rely on the client interest just to break even, and that might be going anyway, just waiting how that goes with Legal Service Board. But when you look at margin versus risk, why on earth would you ever do conveyancing? So I get it, and then people say, oh yeah, because it's people like you who refer it at such a cheap level. No, it's not, because actually that referral agreement and campaign has always been there. It's been there for over 15 years. It works if you just don't panic to build your whip to get it in as cheap as possible.
Is there more of an issue on the referral side of it, though, that if you compare where the average referral fee is now to where it was maybe in 2010, 2015, is it not more that people are taking more out of the pie, leaving less for the solicitor?
Yeah.
We get approached probably on a weekly basis, where an introducer says, "Well, I can only use you if you increase the referral fee limit because yours is too low. I can get more by going somewhere else." I've had it in the past where an estate agent has wanted to get a higher fee off the conveyancing, so they can utilise that in the sales for the selling of the house. So they reduce down the marketing fee for selling the house because they know they're going to make it up. And without calling out the purple bricks, that sort of model where they're going to try and sell it for cheap, because then they're going to maximise every revenue out of the mortgage lead or the conveyancing, and then you see horrific referral fees. It is a place for capping those. I don't. For 1 minute, I don't believe that we should do away with referral fees. And you look at some of the firms on panel who are probably regionalised that get the work nationally. If you start doing away with referral fees, they've openly admitted that it's probably going to take them out of business, or certainly make massive redundancies, because they won't be able to get enough work in locally. So I've got no issue with that work coming in, and I think you do need, I don't like the term factory conveyancers. I don't particularly like the term volume conveyancers. I like to think it more of that these firms are specialists in conveyancing, that you absolutely need those as much as you need the man on the high street. And a bit of a tangent on the technology side we'll probably come on to in a bit, but it's those guys that are going to it's the volume players that are going to put the investment into the tech to try and make things better, because without a doubt there's far more work to do now in a conveyancing role than there ever was. And have we got the same level of experience that we had back in 2008? I'd say absolutely not. We saw the crash in 8, and the financial crisis, and it certainly decimated some of these bigger players. And what also happened is you lost a lot of experience. Now roll that forward 10 to 12 years, and you're starting to rebuild that knowledge in the industry. And COVID comes along and does pretty much exactly the same thing. But did we learn any lessons from the COVID side of stuff? Because was that not the time then, and in hindsight, to say fees really need to go up? The market died. It came back with such a force, and then the government incentives with the stamp duty, etc., came back with such a force that people were just snowed under, and they carried on doing it for that ridiculously low price. Should they have then, right, no, stop, we can't do it, we can't do these volumes. And we saw what happened internally at Sort of Legal. The average time frame going from 12 to 13 week completion up to as high as 24, 25 weeks, which makes it absolutely impossible to make any money. Should it have been a case, right, we're not taking any more than X and we're going to double our fee for it, the clients benefited. The rest of the industry, look at how estate agents benefited from that time. They're putting a house on the market and selling it sometimes within hours without a board going up. They're still getting all their big fees, and then the pressure's just loaded right onto the conveyancer to get that job completed in time, so the client doesn't pay stamp duty. how was that ever fair? How was it ever right? But who were to blame for that? Did the sector learn? No, because then when we had the one a couple of years ago, exactly the same thing happened. And you look at last March, and the completion numbers at all the law firms last March, because you had the stamp duty incentive then. And then what happened April and May, it fell off a cliff. So I think pricing is one that we're really, and that's what we're trying to do with the levelling up. We're trying to say, this is where it really needs to be. But then you think back to the first meeting we had, we've got, guys, you've got to be very careful you don't get accused of trying to run a cartel.
Yeah, we can talk about pricing, we just won't set pricing. But I think just following on your tangent with technology, I think the other thing with volume players, where pricing is right, reinvestment then goes in to staff. And that's where everybody says, oh, do you know, your volume conveyancers, you're the worst to blame, you're cutthroat, you're this, you're that. Actually, they're not. If you look at us as a volume player versus some of the other panels, people that we've got on panel that also do it, we've got academies, we've got training schools, we've got progression plans. Do you know, where you've got that extra little bit money because you squeeze that margin out, it then gives you that opportunity to reinvest that back into those young ones that will come on, to get that pride and to get that skill back in for the next wave, which will come in about another 10 years' time. Do you know, so volume conveyancers have their place to offer a reasonably feed service, but actually they do far more than that, because we employ a hell of a lot of people compared to a high street firm. Do you know, we do take on a lot more risk. We're solely focused on one work type, so we're doing conveyancing, but we get a lot of people from universities. We'll put them through training academies. Yes, there's that argument that, they might get far better training in a two-partner firm, but then again, go to a two-partner firm, then what two-partner firm can afford to take on that level of trainee? Do you know, it does do a lot. It does play a big role. So when people say referred works to blame, you kind of have to turn that table a little bit and say, yes, it is, because service has fell off. Do you know, we know that from one law firm. Service in conveyancing is pretty poor in general. Once we'll fix that, and we'll fix that with tech training and money, however that gets fixed, once that's fixed, actually, those big referral firms are putting a lot of investment back into people in training.
But would you say that the service is poor, or are you defining that by the fact that communication is poor?
I think service versus communication. So where, do you know, what is the difference? Because to me, it is pretty much one and the same. I think people say communication because it's easier to prove, where service is a little bit harder to prove, because, like you always say, you could be the worst conveyancer on the land, but phone your client every day, and they're going to think you're great. When that PI claim comes in, do you know, because I totally balls up your title, the client ain't ever going to really care because it's moved on. Or you could be the best technical lawyer in the world and never speak to your client, and you'll be the worst. So,
absolutely,
do you know, which way does it go? But I think for us over in Sword Legal, you kind of see it. It's that almost younger generation where I think the training needs to get better, is there is a fear to answer that phone. Everybody's so used to the Amazon influence if you get a next day, and everybody's so used to communicate, I'm going to text you. Do you know, now people always argue with me and say, yeah, but Keith, you're selling conveyancing services to that same demographic. So does that client on the other side want them to, do they want to phone, do you know, or do they just want to communicate via text? But what we see as the biggest moan is, my conveyancer wasn't there on the phone. And you think, yeah, okay, so how do we get you there on the phone? We'll give you less work. When we give you less work, you need to charge a higher fee. Do you know, so it does always come back to margin.
Well, this is is it a cycle? If you don't break it, will just continue. You talk about the training, and I think I keep harking back to 2019. We set the budget, and we'd got a certain amount of weeks to complete, and a certain amount of cases per fee earner. And then what happened is it got to COVID, it dried up, and then it went mad. And those cases weren't taking 12 weeks. You got all the councils were still shut. The lenders had got stuff on furlough. Surveyors were having massive backlogs everywhere in the whole of the chain. It was delay. But did we keep those people at 95 hours? No, you can't, because they need to try. We'd set that model and them completing a certain amount per month. Now the problem with that is caseloads went up, so these younger people, and there were younger people, having much higher caseloads, struggling like mad to do the job with no time at all to train. So it's reducing caseloads and charging more is double-edged, or triple-edged. It means you can start to make a profit out of the law firm. If you're charging more, then you're going to bill more. But if also you're reducing the files down, you're giving the people the time to actually do the job. So that communication piece that always falls down, that's the commitment we need from the people sat at the desks. Is we're going to give you more time to do the job. We expect you to do the bit that's probably perceived as the failure, and that's the communication piece. Because you talk to any mortgage broker or any estate agent, they just want to know what's going on, and if they can't get hold of somebody, then we're then a reflection of their service, because they're the ones that have recommended us to those people. I think and the training absolutely has to form that with that same mentality. We're going to reduce caseload down because we want to spend more time giving you.
But I also think training the other way though, because how many estate agents, mortgage brokers do we get complaints over on source of funds? It's a regulatory responsibility. We have to do it. We've got a legal obligation to do it. It's done to a totally different level than the mortgage broker or the estate agent. And I know we're going to cover compliance podcasts in this going forward, but I think it's important that they understand, because most of our conveyancers get blamed when the compliance team has taken so long to sign something off, because we're having to go right down the trail. We don't talk to the client. The conveyancer does, and I kind of get that. It's not their fault. They're waiting on us. But I think if those outside of the legal industry understood the regulatory burden as put on the law firm to evidence our source of funds, source of wealth, they'll give you a breather. And I think most money laundering officers were all a little bit scared to actually go out and say, do you know what, guys, this is why we have to do it. We're not tipping you off. We're not telling you how our systems and our processes work. But what we're saying is, this is what we absolutely have to do. Here's an example of it done really well, and here's an example of how it's really bad. And the bad ones tend to be when the introducer is saying they don't need that. They're asking too much. It's a forensic investigation. We'll fast for 6 months bank statements. How's that? But I think training and understanding within the firms is great, but also those outside of it need to understand what the conveyancing process is. And I think that kind of cloak is what gets everybody's backs up, because we've done it before. We've took conveyancers to Will and up things and other little campaigns, and so referred to the regional events. We took conveyancers there to explain, even something that is as simple as a remortgage actually is not simple in terms of the legality of what they have to go through. And I just think if people really understood what it was, they wouldn't be saying the conveyancing process is broken, because it's not. What is broken is everybody thinks that it should be. It's
perception.
Yeah, it's a perception of that. It should be done within days, out within days. You can move the money within seconds. Why does it take so long? Or indemnify it. Well, you can only indemnify it if the lender allows you to. But then we've still got to ask the lender if they're going to accept it. So all these things do cause delays. But I even hate using the term delay, because it's not delay. It's just the process of completing the work. But I also think people say, I can go and buy a car and get a car in 2 weeks. Yeah, but an average car's, 35 grand? Your house on average is 200 grand. Let's not be a dick about it. You're spending 200 grand on a mortgage that's going to be for 30 to 35 years of your life.
Let's face it,
you're not going to get it next.
You can spend 3-4 grand on a suite, 3-piece suite, and they'll tell you it's 8 to 10 week delivery time. And
but they'll accept that.
It.
Yeah, but they won't accept that the biggest investment is going to take so much longer. I kind of disagree with that view on Remo. I think Remo could be faster. We're looking at different ways of trying to make it faster anyway in Sort Legal. But I still think there needs to be an appreciation for the service, because actually when you look back, particularly with our teams and Sort Legal itself, I'm hugely proud of that bunch of people. They work their asses off. They constantly strive to do a good job. They don't get out of bed on a morning and say, do you know what, today I'm going to be absolutely shit and piss off every single person that contacts me. They don't. They go out of bed and think, today I'm going to do a great job, and then all of a sudden they're beaten down by about 40, 50 emails off the chart telling them that they're not good enough. Actually, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, not many people will do that job, and not many people will be prepared to take that level of abuse that they get for trying to do their job. So I think what they do in those teams is second to none. You know, we've got some really good people, got some really strong people. But I think for me, back to it, conveyancing isn't broken. The perception of conveyancing is broken, but it could be made better with technology. You know, but I guess really that takes one to the stuff that you're doing with Project 28, and how that kind of makes its way via its charter into firms.
Project 28 is really looking at everything. So it's looking at all sectors. So lenders are involved in it, estate agents, brokers, data suppliers, and obviously conveyancers. But I still go back to the very first meet that we had on that at the House of Commons, and an MP chaired this meeting, and you got the likes of MAB, London and Country there representing the mortgage side of it, Property Mart, Rightmove, etc. There's a couple of estate agents there. There were some lenders there, like HSBC, Nationwide, and Lloyds, and it felt like I don't necessarily believe that it was, but it felt like it was a bit of a finger pointing exercise at what do we need to do? Do we need to change the whole process because it's broke? And was the finger being pointed at the conveyancers for that? And the question was asked at the end: has anybody got any closing comments? And I'd listened through it all, and I said, guys, come on, what do you expect? And you point to the estate agent representative and say, tell me what the average fee is for your guys. For selling a house. And then to the mortgage side of it, what's the average fee that your guys are making out of a deal? And then look at what the actual legal fee is, and then strip out the fact that some of that is a referral fee to either the agent or the broker. So that actually the legal fee isn't what they're getting, it's far less. What do you expect? And the last 2 years seems to have been a little bit about all of this is there's far more work to do for a solicitor now than there was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Is anybody doing anything to help on the source of wealth, which is probably the biggest problem that we have?
It's got to be 35% of the transaction. Source of wealth,
and,
source of funds.
And can we charge for it? The amount that's charged for it is it's embarrassing.
Well, we've seen some firms are charging for it, so they're grading it on its complexity. I mean, we keep it simple. I know this isn't the compliance one, but but if you're a firm that's going to be accepting crypto, for example, 450, 500 quid ain't cutting the amount of time that your compliance team needs then to get to the bottom of that trail. So
But I think as in sort legal, I think the source of wealth fee is less than what I'm being charged for my solicitor to receive an email as part of my divorce.
Yeah, it is.
You look at what they charge to receive that email in.
Yeah. Well, there's when we're feeding 5 people. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Salary wise, yeah.
But so I don't know. Again, with that, the Project 28 bit, it feels like at long last the industry's starting to look at ways that it can work more collaboratively. I think some people believe there's silver bullets out there with technology that they've never sat behind the desk.
Get it to them faster, isn't it? But why? Yeah. No matter how fast you get the information there, they still have to go through the same process of it. But
I do believe, I genuinely believe there are more tools now at the fingertips. But if you embrace every bit of technology that people come knocking at your door at, then the legal fee alone would have to go up 300 quid just to cover all of those data pieces.
Disbursements,
what we have what we've tested and proven within legal, and we're not special because of it, because there's a lot of the industry is doing really well at the minute. They're charging the right fee amounts and they're delivering the right amount of service. So I go back a little bit to that to me is where the panel managers need to start and play their part. Is you do realise to get the service that you need as an estate agent or a mortgage broker, the fee has to go up. You cannot give you what we can't. In isolation we can do it. On the odd, probably 5 out of 10 cases we can do it, and you'll have a really happy client. But the other 5, you've got no chance because there's just too much to do.
Because on fees, I don't know if Project 28 is looking at this, so we've also got transparency fees with the CLC and the SRA. So as law firms, we have to be transparent with fees up on the website. Do you think panel managers need a form of transparency? So going back to, when MCOPs came out and everybody had to,
1,000,000%.
to put Anesis in the standard format, do you think to remove the smoke and mirrors that we know some of them do to make it look cheaper, do you think we need, because our quotes are transparent, they're all on there, you see it itemized, we have competitors downloading them, we know that via the sites to pitch against them, but do you think, would Project 28 help with that, or look to somehow standardize the way that a conveyancing job is quoted from a referrer?
I think it has to be part of that journey. It's got to be a target of something it wants to achieve. Even within Project 28, you've certainly got 3 or 4 panel managers in there. So, and I absolutely believe that we have a role to play. That we need to get the industry quoting in exactly the same way. At the minute, a client can go and get off just one particular firm on our panel. A client can go and get 7 different quotes off that one firm, and every quote will be worded differently. So using standard industry standards for a TT fee or whatever, bad example, but making sure that everything, if it's an ID fee, everybody calls it the same. That in itself is possibly difficult to achieve because of case management systems and how everybody's set up.
I agree the way it's quoted.
We've been doing this now for 17 years. If we do a market watch and look at what the other panels are charging, it's a hell of a job to compare one quote against the next. Now, if we're doing that day in, we don't do it day in, day out anymore, but if we're doing that on a regular basis, and the client's got to do it once every 6 years, what chance has the client got to understand whether that quote with firm A is any different to that quote with firm A? So an industry standard where everybody quotes exactly the same way, but also an education that everybody knows that this quote is for vanilla. This is for a straightforward property. And so don't go selling it, telling Mr. Mortgage Broker or Mr. Estate Agent, don't sell it saying this is the fee you'll pay. This is the basic fee that you'll pay, is what people need to be telling the clients. But if there's anything that's more complex with the property, then you'll end up paying more for it. What that is anybody's guess, and nobody does know that, and nobody can know that until you've done the title check. So, how on earth do you quote that accurately? And this is probably where maybe upfront information starts to come into it. This is some of the tools that are available right now. Is that actually you can look at the complexity. You can use AI. You can do your title checks earlier, but it means getting the client engaged earlier. And do we need to change the whole home buying process? You've got people shouting that maybe the vendor needs to go doing the searches, doing the property survey, and going to quite a bit of expense just to list the property. That is that to my eyes is a major change, and maybe one that we don't need to do. We've proven with the enhanced cases that we're doing, where you charge a little bit more and you get the client engaged at the very start, and they know that if they engage, our best endeavours will get you to exchange within 4 weeks. We're actually achieving it. Searches aren't a delay. Was at the CA conference the other week, and Landmark got up and said their average time to produce searches, with whether it be One Search Direct or Search Flow, is at the lowest it's been in the last 20 years. I think quite something like 8 days for the searches to come back. Well, that's not a delay. The ID is a pain in the neck. You've got to do it so many times.
Universal ID would be a good one. So you can use all the way along, but again, that needs a bit of a change in legislation, because we have to do an ID check. And until it says you can use Reliance, then it's always going to be that case. But
Data and provenance and and quality. It absolutely has got to. It's got to be there for the conveyancing sector to adopt any of these this data. So a little bit go back to Project 28. This is really what I'm trying to achieve. What can lenders do? What more can lenders do to help? We was at the CIE conference 3-4 years ago, and the dam was about to burst at Whaley Bridge. And the guy from Nationwide got up and stated they knew pretty much what their liability was if that dam had burst. Well, if they've got all that information, and whatever information they've got, if they can pass it on to a conveyancer to help them so that it reduces inquiries or any standard stuff, then lenders have got a part to play. And Project 28 is all about, right, guys, what can you do to make this better? What can the conveyancer do to make it better? What can the mortgage broker do? And a little bit of that is education.
But lenders have got a huge part to play at the minute with signatures, though. Do you know, everybody wants us to move on and get bigger, get better, make things easier. But actually, some of the hurdles that we're crossing is we're still having to sign out a manual mortgage deed to be wet signed, to be returned back, to go to your postcom team, to be uploaded. So if they can play their part with technology where it's useful, great. But that doesn't change conveyancing. That makes the process a little bit quicker and slicker. But we're still going to have to go through the same process of that buying selling.
I think that alone, qualified electronic signatures is probably the biggest thing that will change conveyancing in terms of efficiency. Look at the remortgage process and what
for remortgage it's a biggie.
And what we built internally, where it's very light touch for the client right the way through until you have to email. I mean, you email a mortgage deed to a client. And
expect them to have a printer, a scanner, and a pen.
Well, but even the scanner's not good enough because they've got to print it off, sign it wet, and post it back. I mean, how archaic is that? I think this is where the beauty of having both feet in both camps on the panel manager side of it, and on the legal side of it is you pretty much learn what the issues are, and it allows you then, you think about the tech that we've built for onboarding, which originally was just for the remo side of it, which is now for pretty much anything that we could onboard. And the ease for the client, how much easier it is for the client to deal with us now, and then look at what else is coming to the market now. We can build and adapt to those. I genuinely think it's a really exciting time for the industry. But I won't move away from the root for me is that the cause of the problem and why we are where we are now is that there's never been enough time for the people to do the job. It's been we expect more, and yes, I'm a major shareholder in Sort Legal, but this isn't about making Sort Legal more money. Yes, I think it'd be a byproduct if we can reduce those caseloads down. If we can charge more for it, if we can pay our staff more so they're motivated, if we can then show them progression and we invest our time in them, we've got to make damn sure that we've got enough time to deliver what it is we're going to promise. Because if we don't, they'll get pissed off. But then to expect, and this is where the industry's got to accept that, I don't like titles. I don't like saying junior fairness or seniors or whatever. Is these guys are there to do a job, and you don't get labelled, I'm a senior driver because I passed my test 40 years ago. You pass your test, you get a piece of paper, you're now qualified to drive. It's very similar with conveyancing. You could do your 3 years, and you earn your stripes, you get your piece of paper. Those people have got to realise that they're not Billy Bigspuds just because they've got a piece of paper. They've still got to learn that experience. And what we don't want is to beat the crap out of these people, work them to death, so that they think, stuff this, I can earn just as much going sacking shelves at a supermarket on minimum wage, and I'm not getting shouted at every day. We've got to put the time and the effort into these people to make them realise this is a job for life if they want it. That we're going to, our job is to make sure that you've done it with your accounts guys. where you train them to a point that they leave.
Yeah.
We've got to do the same thing with conveyancing. It's not our job to say you're going to be tied behind this desk for 30 years. Is if you're good enough and you've got the business acumen, then we need to train you to the point where you're good enough to go out in the big wide world and do it on your own.
I mean, that's our group ethos is we train them to leave, or at least be able to leave.
Yeah.
The fact that they stay then is only a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I know you've got a couple more of these that you're recording today. Obviously, we've just barked on about conveyancing and how you can't expect, for an estate agent, you can't get £4,500 service out of an £800 legal fee.
Yeah.
But equally, those referrers and introducers are our lifeline. We'll have to have that shared appreciation that they are putting their faith in their clients and us when they make that recommendation. You're going to speak to them anyway to see what's their side of it. What do they think of it? What do they think can be better? But I think the question that you and me set out to briefly discuss there was, is it fit for purpose at the minute? Ultimately, yes. I mean, it's worked this way for hundreds of years. That doesn't always make it right, admittedly, but what isn't fit for purpose is all the additional bits that have been dropped into it, and then that constant erosion of profit margin as everybody races back down to the bottom to maintain cash flow. And I think ultimately that's what pisses off the introducers when they're trying to phone through, they're trying to get an update, they're on the phone for 20 minutes, they can't get through to anybody. So there's other bits that we can do to fix that in terms of technology, but the core is give them less, let them work better, and let them charge more for it, fixes everything really that people are saying is wrong with conveyancing.
Yeah. Well, it is that less is more.
Yeah.
We've proven that give people less to complete cases faster.
Yeah.
They've got more time to do the work. It's I've not got many years left in this industry, but a big passion of mine is to drive this change or be part of that. We can't do it on our own, but to be part of something that does drive this change. And I think, whilst we're going to tell the guys, communicate, you've got to communicate better. That's the commitment we need from you. We also need them to have that mindset change. Is, it's not going to take 14, 16 weeks. We're not looking at industry average. Our aim, pay us properly. Our aim is it will be exchange ready within 4 weeks. Yeah. And we've been talking that the levelling up meets at other stuff, and then Project 28. It wasn't called Project 28 at the start. It was probably about a year ago. So when they started touting that name, it's like, this is music to my ears. You remember the call that we both listened into with one of our guys who he got no concept of urgency, and we need to change that mindset within. So I think there's a mindset change, there's a communication change,
and a training issue,
and then I think conveyancing is well on the way to. If it's well on the way to sorting itself out, if the fees are correct. Yeah. If they're not, and brokers and agents and whoever want to carry on driving this to the bottom, then it doesn't matter whether you bring AI, whether you bring whatever technology, it's not going to make a lot of difference because the law firm still won't make a profit. Therefore, you see caseloads that are too high, and not enough time to do the training and do the work.
We could go on about this for hours now, but I think that is our time up. So thanks very much for that. Yeah, I'll see you back in the office.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to let us know in the comments below. See you again soon.